Hey folks, a question that I get quite often is whether it's worth upgrading one's bike. Whether components can be replaced with the current ones, whether what came standard as stock on a used bike is worth it reusing, and because it's kind of impossible to answer any of those questions without talking about a specific example, what I have in front of you here is a Rocky Mountain Soul 710. This is a 2016 bike, and it's been used and abused, which is great. And now it's time for some upgrades because the drivetrain needs some attention first and foremost. So let's take a close look at the various components that came standard with the bike, and I'll give you my assessment on whether this would be worth upgrading or not and what you would get out of it. The three major components that would cost you a ton of money are obviously the frame, then you have the wheels, and lastly you have the fork. In this case, if you have a full suspension, will be the fork and the shock. If you're not happy with what you have, or if the bike that you're considering needs replacing any of those components, take a closer look. It might be too much money for what you're trying to get yourself into. However, in this case, I consider that at least two out of the three are worth keeping, so that's why I consider this a good candidate. First of all, looking at the frame. This is an aluminum frame that has quite a modern design. 432 millimeter chainstays. The front end is longish. Look at the reach always, stack and reach in this case. Top tube, effective top tube, which is the length from here to your saddle, to your seat post. This has a tapered head tube, which is great, especially since I don't like the fork, so I would replace this as a first thing. However, if you don't have a tapered head tube, chances are you will be limited in the forks that you find out there. Also, if you're looking for fresh takeoffs as being an upgrade to the current fork, you would be looking most probably for something like this, which is a tapered head tube. Second thing here, and I kind of alluded to it, is the fork. This bike comes with a coil fork that has an open and lock and a bit of a preload here, but at best this is a pogo stick, and this is an Suntour SCM QR. Unfortunately, no through bolt here. It's heavy. It doesn't do much to help the ride, to keep that wheel bolted to the ground. So in my books, this would be one of the first things to replace. And lastly, looking at the third component here, major component, is the wheels. Wheels are built around WTB SX19 rims. This is straight gauge spokes, which is fine. It keeps it stiff. Tubeless ready. It has 19 millimeter internal, which is kind of narrow by today's standards, but definitely usable. But the other thing that's good here is, if you look closely, you're gonna see that these are Shimano hubs, which are great with a bit of maintenance. The cup and cone belt that they provide will last, or probably outlast, the bike. You have center lock on the other side, and you have center lock brake discs. The only problem with these Shimano hubs, if you want to talk about a problem, is the fact they're quite heavy, and they cannot be converted from the existing QR, and this is QR front and back. You cannot convert that to anything else like a through bolt of any type. But considering that you have half decent hubs, rims that are worth keeping and converting to tubeless, 32 spokes per wheel, which makes it kind of sturdy and easy to fine-tune or true the wheel if you have to. In my mind, that means that these wheels are worth keeping, at least for now. Looking at the cockpit, usually the handlebars, stem, and your saddle and seat post. The handlebars in this case are razor bars, 720 millimeter wide. They're quite wide for cross-country bike. This is a 50 millimeter stem installed in reverse, as you can see it here. only because the stack of this bike is quite high for a smallish rider. You can slam it down a bit more. You can put the flat bar as opposed to this riser bar if you want to move that down a bit more. You can trim this handlebars a bit if 720 is too wide for you. But overall, if you don't want to do any of that, you can play with the spacers here just to make this a bit more comfortable for you, or you can do nothing at all. This is good enough the way it is for more aggressive riding. Now, don't use the stem to adjust your cockpit. Stem is usually used, or the length of the stem is used to adjust the way the bike feels. With this wider bars and shorter stem, this bike is good for more playful type of ride, more aggressive type of ride, more downhill oriented type of ride. For a cross-country type of bike or oriented bike, you might want to get a slightly longer stem here just to help you climbing. Seat post, this one comes with an offset. Again, remember that you can slide your saddle here on the rails further up or down. That has to do with the position of your knee more than anything. It has to do with how comfortable you are on the saddle, and again, it comes down to personal preference. This is a half decent saddle. It's a WTB Volt, so it can stay the way it is. So here is, that's how you would look at the cockpit and whether you can reuse any of these components. Obviously, if you want a bit more blink, if you want to save weight, you would consider replacing all this aluminum bits and pieces with carbon, but just be prepared to pay for that. Moving on, obviously this will have to go. Lock-on grips make a huge difference. You can see how these rotated on the handlebar and actually moved in on both sides. So a good set of grips makes a huge difference. This bike is built around two things. It's old Shimano build. You can see kind of entry-level Shimano 355s here, and whereas they have half decent stopping power, the problem that I see with these would be just the shape of the lever here. I want one finger braking for anyone racing or riding anything serious off-road. So these brakes have to go. However, in the used market, this might still have a price, so you'll probably get some money for them if you decide to upgrade. The benefit by upgrading your brakes would be more stopping power, more ergonomic design here, and probably you'll shed a tiny bit of weight as well. Drivetrain on this bike is a 3x9. You can see the Shimano Altus shifters here, front and rear. Again, this is a 3x9. I would definitely get rid of the front derailleur for this bike and upgrade the drivetrain to something modern. It can be a 1x10 with extended cassette. If you want to go all the way, go 11 speed. That would most probably save you a bit of weight, and you will be surprised by the nice performance of the current drivetrains. Bringing it down, again, taking a look at the fork. The only other thing worth mentioning here is the rotor. These are Shimano rotors that, if you look carefully, they're going to say somewhere resin only. They're good enough. You can improve your stopping power just by replacing these ones with something like an SLX. Also, you will save a few grams, but the big upgrade on the rotors would be that you get a bit more stopping power, and you can use metal pads as opposed to resin only that are specified for these. Moving here in the back, you see the same Shimano 160mm resin only disc. That's gonna stay in my case. The caliper will go away, and you also see the QR release here. This frame has a 135mm rear spacing with the QR release, which is not ideal, as most of the current bikes have a through bolt here. However, you'll be hard pressed to notice any stiffness difference between a through bolt and a QR in case of a hardtail, a small hardtail like this. Quick release here, which is fine. Taking a quick look at the cables, I would be more than glad to get rid of at least one of these, the one for the front shifter. They're all routed under the top tube here, which is okay. The one thing that I don't like though is the way they routed, you can see here, the rear derailleur cable coming very close to the tire. If you're picking up rocks and things like that, that can damage your cable. So I would change the routing of that particular cable. This particular bike comes with a Sphinx, Maxxis Sphinx tires, front and rear. In the meantime, the front was upgraded to an Ardent 225. You might want to consider getting a decent set of tires. They make a huge difference in the ride quality and the amount of grip. One other thing worth considering, especially since the rims allow it, is converting these wheels to tubeless. That would save you probably north of half a pound of rotational weight. Overall, you'll extract the most out of your tires if you're using a tubeless type of setup. Now that we talked about everything else, the big elephant in the room remains the drivetrain. And if I am to come up with a rule of thumb, is if your bike comes with 6 or 7 speed drivetrain, just forget about upgrading. Chances are that you're going to have to replace the wheel set, since the free hub cannot accept any of the current drivetrains in the market. However, if you have an 8-speed, in this case we have a 9-speed drivetrain, this can be easily upgraded to 10 or 11 speed, because the free hub body here will accept either a 10 or 11 speed cassette, and you can easily replace the derailleur with the matching shifter. And the only other thing that you have to worry about in that case will be the crankset. One good thing about these frames is that they come with a threaded bottom bracket. You can look over here. You can't really see this bottom bracket because it's an internal one with a square taper that requires specific crank sets. This is a Suntour that comes with 170 millimeter crank arms here, which is good for people with shorter legs. The other thing that is good about this crankset is the fact that it provides a standard BCD. This is a triple with 104 millimeter BCD here for the middle ring and the big ring, which means that I can remove all these chain rings and install race face, narrow wide, or an oval in the middle position, and that gives me good chain line and also makes this upgrade cheaper, because I don't have to replace the bottom bracket or the crankset. However, if you want to install any of the modern cranksets on this bike, because the bottom bracket is threaded, and it's English threaded bottom bracket most probably, you can replace the bottom bracket with whatever you need and install any crankset that you might want, but that would add to the cost of the upgrade. And here's the bike stripped down of its drivetrain, brakes, all the chain rings are gone, my derailleur cassette, all the cables are gone, everything is gone. And what's coming in is SLX cassette and rear derailleur, XT shifter, all 11 speed, a good set of lock-on grips. I found on clearance Shimano SLX brakes, the good old stuff, 32 teeth, narrow wide, 104 millimeter BCD, remember? And the one that I'm mostly excited about, since these were on clearance this year, it's Fox Performance Series, not any Fox 32, but the Fit 4 from 2016. So long gone is the CTD. This has the new damper that performs a lot better. You have open, medium, and firm here, and yeah, 100 millimeter fork, just exactly what the bike had installed. really looking forward to get them done. So is it worth upgrading that bike? Well, only you can answer that question. In my case, I can give you quite a few reasons why taking a used bike and upgrading it with new components made a lot of sense. But what is your experience? What kind of surprises did you have along the way? What did you learn in doing something like this with your bikes? Let me know if you have any questions. I hope you found this useful and I gave you some ideas on things that you should consider when looking at an upgrade. And until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the trails, guys. Cheers.